but trans people aren't being, dishonest by claiming to be a certain gender.
Okay, well, you claim this, but from my perspective, they are. What's wrong with me saying that you're lying and then misgendering you?
So a lie requires intent. This is something that you've said yourself.
Yeah, but I'm not lying about it.
Wait, but you said that the trans person is lying. The trans person had
No,
no
I
intent of being
said
dishonest.
no. The intent
You
works on
yourself
both
have said that
levels.
lies
The
require intent, but there is
from
no
both
there is no
part-
intent of dishonesty when a trans woman
from
claims
both
to be a woman.
parties. The conservative also isn't lying to you by misgendering you, is he?
I never said that they were lying.
Right, they're not lying. So the thing is that in order to be completely honest, a conservative must misgender.
If that's what they believe,
Yeah, because that's the vibe.
I'm not saying they have to gender a trans person as the trans person would.
Right. So because that would be a lie and that would be bad and that would be against the vibe. So as we can see, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know out in the audience, Naomi made a phenomenal case for why anybody who doesn't believe that a trans woman is a woman, it's okay to misgender them, because Naomi wouldn't want you to lie after all. Right, Naomi?
Well, hold up. I think that there is a loss of utility in doing so. Now, people can, for whatever their intentions are, they can still do things that have bad outcomes. So, for example, misgendering a trans person, it has negative outcomes. That's a bad thing.
Doesn't lying have negative outcomes?
What's up, boys? Welcome to Roasted Libs. This debate was interesting. Naomi, the trans activist, absolutely gets destroyed by Andrew Wilson, and I'm not even going to lie, but this trans person, Naomi, is one of the most reasonable trans activists that I've seen debate. But she's still very delusional, and Andrew Wilson proves this throughout the debate on the Crucible podcast. So let's dig in. Let's go, boys.
All right, thank you so much. So, Naomi, you said that I was mischaracterizing your position, but you didn't actually give us a definition of what a woman is. You just said it could encompass all these multifaceted things. What is the definition of a woman in your purview?
Would you like a definition?
I would like you to give me your definition, or
sure,
what you
I can certainly give you a definition of woman, but I want to be clear that I don't believe that there is one end-all be-all definition for any term, let alone woman. But because I recognize woman more so under a sociological framework, I would say that a woman is an individual who's assigned feminine roles and expectations by their society based on perceived femininity, femaleness, and or stated identity.
So it's just a perception? There's nothing foundational about it?
It's based on a lived social experience.
Well, it sounds like it's an empty label because you're not telling me what it actually is.
I told you it's based on a lived social experience.
Yeah,
of
that
having
doesn't mean anything.
Feminine roles and expectations assigned to you by society.
What is the actual definition according to Naomi? If
I just provided it to you.
If I declared that I was a woman, would I be one?
I don't think so.
Why?
That is not your sincere identity.
But assuming that...
Also, that's not your lived social experience.
Assuming that I took it as my lived identity, do you need to have the social experience of being a woman in order to be one?
Are you asking descriptively or prescriptively?
I'm asking you.
Well, I think that descriptively, if we're recognizing woman as a lived social experience, then that would encompass somebody who lives that social role. But if we're talking about how I think that people should be prescriptively treated, then I would want to treat people based off of their sincere identity.
I'm asking
that is completely an answer to your question.
That they're a woman. If a man claims that they're a woman, a biological male claims that they're a woman, what makes them not one?
What do you mean?
I don't know how else I can possibly frame that better, but I'll try. If a person says, Naomi, I have all the same characteristics that you do, but I'm not a woman, are they a woman?
If we're talking descriptively, if their lived social experience is that of a woman, descriptively, they would be a woman.
So would you misgender them?
No, because I interact with people based off of my prescriptive beliefs.
Okay, so anybody who says they're a woman, you're going to consider them to be one.
If it's a sincere identity, then prescriptively, yeah.
Well, how would you know if it's sincere or not? You just have to take them at their word.
I think that you can typically do this based off of a vibe check. For example, when Steven Crowder dressed up as a woman and said that he was a woman, I didn't believe him.
Wait,
I think that a trans woman who sincerely believes that, they are a woman, they want to be a woman, it's pretty easy to tell based on a vibe check.
You just told me that based on the vibe, if you feel like they aren't, it's okay to misgender them.
If someone like Steven Crowder is pretending to be a trans woman, I think it's okay to misgender him.
Okay, but what if you don't know? What if they're claiming that they are? You don't know for sure, but the vibe you get is that they're not. Is it okay to misgender them?
I mean, I default to being pretty lenient with people, but I think that based on the vibe check, it's pretty easy to tell when someone is being, very, very dishonest.
Well, how do you know? They could be lying. Like, for instance, if you tell me, Naomi, if you said to me, Andrew, I'm a woman, and I said, you're lying to me, the vibe that I get is that you're not. Why am I wrong? Because
Why are you wrong?
it's a
Because my
lived,
lived social
you claim it's a
experience is that
lived
of a
social
woman.
experience, but you could be lying, right?
Sure, people can lie about their lived social experience.
So then why ought I say something that I think is not true?
I mean, you can say whatever you want to believe. I'm simply arguing for what I believe and what I believe creates the most utility in these situations.
But Naomi, I know what.
Naomi tells Andrew Wilson that she's arguing based on of her beliefs. Yes, Andrew has his beliefs too. So why should Andrew have to lie to make you feel better? Like, it makes no sense. And these trans activists such as Naomi never want to have a single definitive explanation and definition of a female and a male. These Democrats, liberals, leftists, trans activists love to not have a definition because they can just say whatever they want. Like Andrew Wilson is absolutely destroying Naomi, this trans activist, to his face. And let's dig into the rest of this.
I know that in the realm of what is, I can do whatever I want. I'm asking you, why ought I do this thing?
Why ought you do
Why
what?
ought I go ahead and do this thing where you claim that I need to go out of my way to call somebody based on the vibe, whatever I want, even if what if the vibe I'm getting is that they're lying?
I never said that you have to do this. I'm explaining why I do this.
Well, regardless, it's still an ought. Don't you think people ought not misgender other people?
Yes, I think that people ought to treat people based off of the gender role that they would like to live in.
What if your vibe is that they're lying? Is it okay to misgender them?
If it's somebody that it seems that they are very much being dishonest, yeah.
Well, I don't know what that means, though. That's all subjective.
You don't know what vibe checks are? I think there's lots of things that we vibe check about.
Well, wait a second. If any human being then, based on the criteria of like conservative Christian, thinks that a transgendered woman is lying about being a woman, they should then misgender them because their vibe is that they're lying, Naomi.
I don't think that they think the trans woman is lying. I think they disagree with the trans woman, which is not the same thing as thinking that the trans woman is lying.
Well, they think they're lying about being women.
Wait. Is it a lie if like the conservative person and the trans woman has a different perceptive of like what gender means, and the trans woman sincerely believes that she is a woman? Like, is that a lie or is that just a different perspective?
It's a lie if, from the conservatives' perspective, they believe.
That's not a lie at all. That's a difference of perspective.
The Christian person believes that what you're doing. Well, okay, lies are based often on perspective. They can be malicious, this is true, but they're based often on perspective. The conservative wouldn't be lying then by misgendering you, would they?
Wait, what do you think a lie is? I think that a lie is a false statement.
I'm not going to endlessly define everything under the sun with you. If you want me to pull up a definition of lie, I will, but it's acting in a way which is dishonest, right?
Yes, and a trans woman is not acting dishonest by claiming that she's a woman. Just because she has a different definition of woman, that doesn't mean she's acting dishonest.
How do we detect what's a lie?
How do you detect what's a lie? Well, I think there are lots of things that it's kind of hard to detect what's a lie, and we kind of just take people on their word or based on a vibe check. I mean, for example, somebody could lie to you about what their name is, but we kind of just take people at face value on that.
Yeah, but if somebody came up to you and they had a scar across their face and they said, I have no scar on my face, is it okay to say that you're lying?
Well, if it's based on something that is physically observable, then perhaps they are lying.
If it's based on something that's physically observable, that you can see, and from your perspective is not true, you're not actually lying then by misgendering somebody,
gender is not something that's just like purely physical.
Really?
Yes.
There's a metaphysical aspect to it? What would that be?
I would say that gender is more so sociological in nature.
So it's a social construction, that's true, but every manifestation that you can point to of it would be physical, correct?
I guess, like, are things like behaviors physical?
The way that they manifest are physical, yeah.
I would certainly think that, like, gendered expression, there would be physical manifestations of it.
Yes, it's all physical. We've established this. So I don't know what you're talking about. You essentially have just told me that if a person believes that the other person is lying in regards to gender, that it's perfectly okay for you to misgender them. This is your stance you just took, Naomi.
I think that if it's like very clear that somebody is being dishonest, you don't have to, follow along with that. But trans people aren't being, dishonest by claiming to be a certain gender.
Okay, well, you claim this, but from my perspective, they are. What's wrong with me saying that you're lying and then misgendering you?
So a lie requires intent. This is something that you've said yourself.
Yeah, but I'm not lying about it.
Wait, but you said that the trans person is lying. The trans person had no intent of being dishonest.
No, the intent
You
works
yourself
on both
have said
levels.
that lies require intent, but there is no intent of dishonesty when a trans woman claims to be a woman.
The conservative also isn't lying to you by misgendering you, is he?
I never said that they were lying.
Right, they're not lying. So the thing is that in order to be completely honest, a conservative must misgender.
If that's what they believe,
yeah, because that's the vibe.
I'm not saying they have to gender a trans person as the trans person would.
Right. So because that would be a lie and that would be bad and that would be against the vibe. So as we can see, ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, out in the audience, Naomi made a phenomenal case for why anybody who doesn't believe that a trans woman is a woman, it's okay to misgender them, because Naomi wouldn't want you to lie after all. Right, Naomi?
Well, hold up. I think that there is a loss of utility in doing so. Now, people can, for whatever their intentions are, they can still do things that have bad outcomes. So, for example, misgendering a trans person, it has negative outcomes. That's a bad thing.
Doesn't lying have negative outcomes?
It certainly can.
Yeah. So how do we determine
but not necessarily.
whether the lying has a worse negative outcome than the negative outcome on your utilitarian chart of how the person feels who is doing the lying?
Wait, what is the negative outcome for a conservative to gender a trans person correctly? How is that to violate your religion?
I just told you. You just expressed that if, from the perspective of the Christian, they believe that they're lying by giving you a gender that they don't believe is true, that actually correlates with the sex in which you're trying to express, they would be lying. That's against their core value. There's no utility in it for them whatsoever. In fact, it's counter-utils. Negative utils.
Wait. Just because a religious person believes something doesn't necessarily mean that that is a moral action to do.
Just because a transgender person believes something doesn't necessarily mean it's a moral action either.
Right, which is why we should look at objective outcomes, such as the mental health and overall well-being of trans people.
Why should we look at objective outcomes? Wait, stop.
And the affirmation of trans people improves those outcomes.
You smuggled this in. The objective outcome, right? How do we know that this is the objective outcome, that it's more harm for you to tell the entire swath of the American public, some 270 million who self-identify as Christian, that it's better for them to lie from their perspective than it is for you to be lied to, because you think the outcomes are more negative?
There is no harm in gendering a trans person correctly, and we have research studies, medical studies, which show that trans people's mental health outcomes are better when they are socially affirmed in their gender, in the gender they wish to be.
It's just so wild to me that we are now debating in 2025, we are debating gender. We're debating what a man and what a female is. I never thought we would get to this point ever on planet Earth, but this is just wild. Andrew Wilson, thank God for Andrew Wilson. I think he changes a lot of people's mind. He makes a ton of sense. Naomi here is just digging herself into a hole, and Andrew Wilson is just helping him or her dig that hole even deeper. These trans people, such as Naomi, are saying to Andrew Wilson and the rest of us that they expect us to lie to ourselves to make them feel better. But this is it's just going to erode society. We need to be honest. You're not a female. You were born a male. You can pretend all you want, but Andrew Wilson is correct. And where's the study showing that, us lying to ourselves to make you feel better, is harming us too? Just because you want us to call you by your preferred pronouns We don't have to do that. Andrew Wilson is 100% correct.
Well, that's nice for them, but what about the person doing the gendering? Where's the study showing what it does to the person's psychology when they're forced into a situation of having to lie to make you feel better?
I don't think that we have necessarily like studies. I don't think we have any evidence which shows that like Christians are harmed by gendering a trans person correctly.
You
So I
haven't.
think I think we should default to analyzing that as neutral. Unless you can present
Well,
evidence that it's
no.
harmful,
No,
we
no,
should
no.
default to analyzing that
You
as
know
neutral.
why there's no evidence? There's no evidence because nobody will fund what it does psychologically to a population to be forced to lie. And
Are you really claiming to be
It's
victimized by like
lie.
calling a trans woman she? Like that victimizes you?
You said earlier that based on the vibe, that a woman's not just anybody who says they're a woman, because if that were true, then just based on the vibe, you can say, no, that's not true, right? You said that that's totally appropriate, meaning from the person's perspective, the individual's perspective, it's okay for you, if you believe that you're lying, to not lie, right?
So I'm talking about like trying to figure out people who are being disingenuous. A trans person is not being disingenuous. Now,
Yes, they are.
You are claiming
A
that
trans
like there
person's
is
being
you're claiming that there is a
disingenuous.
harm in having or in like gendering a trans person correctly.
Yes,
How are
that's
you
correct.
the victim in gendering a trans person correctly?
Because you're forcing me to lie.
I'm not forcing you to lie.
Yeah, and not only that, it's emotional hostage taking because transgenders are saying either lie to us or we'll kill ourselves.
I never said that.
Well, but when we talk about the data that you're about to get into for why it's objectively better to not misgender trans people, the number one thing you're going to bring up is that they may consider self-suicide if we don't gender them correctly. Correct?
So just because like
Is that
if you
correct,
are going
Naomi?
to
Is
like
that
is it
correct?
correct that trans people
Yes.
commit suicide at
No,
like greater
that's
rates
not my
when they
question.
are not socially
I'll
affirmed?
just restate it really simply. Is it not correct that you're about to tell me that the number one reason that we need to use the proper pronouns is because if we don't, transgender people are going to kill themselves? Isn't that true? Isn't that really what you're going to tell me next?
I don't think that's like necessarily like the main or only reason. I think that just like doing things that lead to, you know, better, more accepting, more welcoming, more happy, healthy.
And this just proves exactly how mentally ill these trans activists and trans people really are. They are lying to themselves and they expect us to lie for the sake of their health. Like they're going to unalive themselves if they, don't transition and all this stuff. Like, I have a son and he's 5 years old and he comes out and says, "Dad, I want to be a dinosaur." You think I'm going to say, "Okay, son, let's make you a dinosaur, okay, bud?" No. So Andrew Wilson, I'm glad he's pushing back to Naomi, this trans activist. Naomi's very respectful, very reasonable, kind of, more than other trans activists. But let's get back to Andrew Wilson destroying Naomi on the Crucible podcast.
Societies in general is a good thing, such as gendering trans people correctly.
Because if we don't gender trans people correctly, what's the consequence, Naomi?
Worsened mental health and all the things that are associated with that.
Which leads to...
It can lead to mental health disorders. It can lead to suicide.
higher
There are
rates
lots
of
of things that it can
suicide,
lead to.
right? Okay,
There are lots of negative outcomes it can lead to.
Right,
Don't you want to prevent those negative outcomes?
Well, perhaps it depends on what we mean when we're saying negative outcomes. When I'm asking specifically here,
do you want to prevent trans people from committing suicide?
I want to know why you think that a whole swath of the population that may not believe this should do it anyway, other than the fact that you're holding us emotionally hostage, literally at the barrel of a gun to your own heads to say, if you do not do this, we are going to collectively start killing ourselves.
I never said that. I have never used any language
Then why ought we do
I have never
it?
used any language that is emotionally hostage taking. I'm simply stating we can create better social outcomes by socially affirming trans people. That is just a fact. I'm just stating facts here.
What social outcomes do you want to see? You
I
want to see the
improved mental health.
suicidality?
I want to see improved well-being.
Right. Why do you want to see those things? Because if trans suffer from a worse mental health status, what ends up happening? Their suicidality rate goes through the roof, right? This is the number one critique, is it not?
That is certainly one thing that happens, but also socially affirming trans people leads to good social outcomes for everyone. When trans people are more included in society, when they're more able to self-actualize, they can become happy, healthy members of society that are more productive, and that helps us
All you
all.
keep
I
doing,
think you should
all
be
you
interested in
keep-
this too. If you want
I
a
am
happy,
interested in
healthy,
it.
productive society, you
So
know,
let's
building a
dive
diverse
into
and
it.
accepting society is going to help us all, and that would
Let's dive-
include the social affirmation of trans people.
Well, Naomi, let's dive into that and see if that's true, right? When you say that we should socially affirm trans people's identity because it's good for the trans people, why do I, a Christian conservative, believes I'm lying by calling you something I know for sure, at least from my perspective, is a lie? Why is that good for all of society, considering that you're outnumbered thousands to one?
Because there is no harm in you gendering a trans person as they wish. Meanwhile, we have demonstrable benefits of gendering a trans person as they wish.
Naomi, is lying harmful?
It certainly can be.
Okay, it can be. And if you were a person who was a Christian, one of the foundations of your religion was that you were not allowed to lie. Would it be harmful for you then to do something that was contrary to your own religious values?
It can be.
Would it be?
I don't think that I can make a blanket statement there.
You don't think that a person who lived their life contrary to their own values, that wouldn't be harmful?
I think that it certainly can be, but I think
Yeah,
that
it can
people
be.
have justifications for
So
things
if you're
where they might
asking
have
me to-
conflicting values, such as, you
So
know,
if-
I think that you in general would believe that reducing the amounts of people that kill themselves is a good thing. You also believe
think that
that
you would
lying is a
also-
bad thing. You have some
Yeah.
conflicting beliefs there. So I mean, you know, there's
So
some
you
there's
want
some
me to
things to
lie?
weigh.
So you want me to lie so that trans people won't kill themselves, right?
I don't think it's a lie.
But that's what you want. Why not just admit that that's what you want? It's a lie from my perspective. I'm not saying that you're lying. Listen, Naomi, I want to be ultimately charitable here. I'm not claiming that you yourself are trying to lie to me. I don't believe that that's true. Okay. From my perspective, though, regardless of what you believe, I think you're lying. Therefore, it's contrary to my religious belief structure, which is very harmful to me. So why should I affirm the identity unless it's to somehow stop you from doing self-harm? You're asking me to do something against my moral values in order to stop you from self-harming. How is that justification? How is that good for society?
How is it good for society? Because
Yeah.
it leads to better social outcomes.
How do you know?
Because we have studies on this. We have
We
studies.
don't have any studies on
We
how
have
it makes
studies on
Christian
trans
feels
people.
to lie.
Okay,
What
well, if
studies
we
do you
don't
have?
if we don't have any evidence for your claim, I think we have to default to it being utilitarian
No,
neutral.
we don't. First of all, that's not how science works. Science doesn't only
If you don't have
default
evidence that
to
it's
any
actually like harmful to
conflicting-
you, I don't think you can claim that it's harmful to you.
Well, first of all, wait a second. I have no evidence. I'm telling you that you're asking me personally to do something that conflicts with my own moral values. That would be harmful to me, yeah?
I think that you have moral values that are at conflict there because you also have a moral value for social good, don't you?
It depends on what the social good is.
Say like people in general having better mental health and like being more so able to self-actualize.
Not necessarily. It depends.
You don't think that people should have better health? You don't think
Depends
that
on
we should
specific
take actions that
criteria.
give people better mental health on
No,
average?
like for instance, if you were to say, should a person take a magic pill that makes them live for 300 years? I would tell you no.
I'm talking about mental health.
Okay, but let's say you said that a person could take a pill. Like I said, it's the criteria that matters. You have to be very specific here. I'm giving you something that is now. It is right this second. I'm telling you that Christian conservatives don't want to gender trans people based on the pronouns of their preference because we think we're lying. And so this causes actual harm to us. On the scale, you say, but the only empirical evidence that I can demonstrate is a harm to ourselves. That's nice, right? But there is
I don't think you can empirically demonstrate a harm to yourself.
That I just told you that you're asking me to lie, and that's harmful.
That's
to
not
me.
empirical.
That's harmful
That's
to my
entirely
psychological
subjective.
health. What?
That's entirely
How is this?
that's not empirical. You don't have any
How
numbers.
is it subjective?
You're saying it hurts my feelings.
Wait
Like
a
that's
second.
just entirely
That's
subjective.
all you're saying.
No,
That's
no,
all you're
I'm saying we have objective data which shows that trans people live better
No.
lives
Oh, you're so
when
full
they
of
are
shit.
when they are socially affirmed.
No, the objective data that you're going to say is that these amount of people were polled and it hurt their feelings. Isn't that true?
No, we also have objective data on things like educational outcomes, things like economic outcomes. Trans people who
Yeah,
are socially
because their
affirmed
feelings are no
do
longer
better in society. They
Because
get
their
better
feelings are no
jobs.
longer hurt.
They acquire higher education. We can
Yeah.
actually point to objective outcomes that have been
But
studied
why?
here. But you can't point to any objective outcomes.
Yes, I can. I've already done this multiple times. I'm saying
No,
to
you just pointed to your subjective feelings.
You have logically stated this multiple times already, that a person who has the religious values that I have, that of saying something that's perceived as a lie from their perspective would probably be harmful to them.
I said it can be.
Yeah, it can be, and I
didn't say probably. I said it can be.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Do you think that Christians, conservative fundamentalist Christians, why do you think that they don't want to label transgender people by their pronouns?
Because it hurts their feelings.
So it hurts them?
I think their poor fifis are in danger. I think it's
I
think it's snowflakery, TBH.
So it hurts them.
I think it's just about their feelings.
So, okay, and what is it for trans people if it's not about feelings?
It's about objective outcomes, which we have measured in like the
based on how
literature.
they feel. It's all based on how they feel.
No, not just based on feelings, based on mental health, based off of socioeconomic attainment.
Naomi, you're so full of shit. If a person does better,
socioeconomic attainment is different than feelings.
The affirmations that are happening for trans people are so that they feel better, so that they can do all the education and blah blah blah. Isn't that true?
What'd you say?
I said specifically, it's their feelings that lead to those outcomes, right? It's based 100% on how they feel, and that's what's actually leading to those better outcomes.
Based 100% on how they feel?
It's 100% based on how they feel. Otherwise, why would the affirmations matter to them?
How can you say it's 100% based on how they feel?
It can't be based on anything else.
I think that it certainly can be based off of things like social cohesion. That's not necessarily a feeling.
So, of course it's a feeling. What else is it?
No, like actually like having greater connections is not just a feeling.
That's
like if you're better able to network, that's not necessarily just a feeling. Like that's something where it's like it's something you've actually achieved.
What's the purpose of it? The purpose of it is how you feel. All of the affirmation is based around how you feel. All affirmations are based around feeling. You say that this does harm to Christians because it hurts their feelings. I'm saying the same argument. The only thing that it does harm to you on is that it hurts your feelings. But there's far more of us whose feelings get hurt. We know this because I can demonstrate to you how many Christians there are, fundamentalists in this nation. A lot more feelings get hurt on this side.
So what are like the negative outcomes of that? Like what are the objective negative outcomes of that?
You're about to tell me, Naomi, that the negative outcomes, if we don't do what you say, is that trans people are going to kill themselves, just so you know.
That is perhaps...
You're trying to hold us emotionally hostage.
One negative outcome. I'm not holding you hostage. I'm just stating that that's something that happens when trans people are not socially affirmed at higher rates.
For us is that we feel like we're strangers in our own nation and religion. We feel like people are allowed to not only broadly lie to us.
I asked for objective outcomes. Do you have any?
The objective outcomes is that our mental health suffers from having to lie.
What's your source on that?
You're my source on it, Naomi.
I asked for objective outcomes.
You already told me.
And you just pointed to your feelings. You don't have objective outcomes.
Naomi, why again do fundamentalist Christians not want to use proper pronouns?
Because they're snowflakes.
Because it hurts their feelings?
Yeah, because it hurts their feelings.
Source? Give me the source, Naomi. Give me the source.
Well, that's talking about a subjective thing.
Give me the source, Naomi. Give me the source that it hurts their feelings right now. Do it.
So I asked you for something objective. I didn't want to just talk about.
Objective.
Do you want me to give you sources about how socially affirming trans people gives them objectively better outcomes? Because I can do that, but you can't give me any. I asked for sources on objective data,
I just asked
not
you for
sources on subjective data.
I asked you for a source for a claim.
Andrew, one sec. I never asked you for a source on subjective data. I asked you for a source on objective data.
It is subjective data.
You claimed that it was objective, but you didn't have any data.
It's not objective. Your source is based 100% around polling of how people feel.
That's not true.
And then based on those feelings, you get
that's not true.
outcome.
I also have studies that are based off of like economic outcomes, educational attainment,
which all lead
that's
back
not
to how they feel.
that's not done based off of a poll
They
of
all
people's
lead back
feelings.
to the feelings.
You can
They all
collect
lead
this
back
from
to the
demographic
feelings.
data. That's
They
not
all
based
lead
off
back
of
to
a
the
poll.
feelings.
You said
They
it
all
was
lead
based
back
on.
to the
You said it was
feelings.
based solely on a poll, but that's just not true.
Yes,
We can
well, yes,
actually
okay.
assess the objective outcomes of trans people, and they improve when they're socially affirmed.
Well, let's find out if this is true or if you're lying to me again. Okay, so here, we'll do it this way. How would we know if those objective things like the economic outcomes and the mental health outcomes were true if you hadn't done a poll asking the person if the affirmations were the things that helped them get those results? Can you explain that to me real quick?
So you don't need to ask them like what gave you the results. You simply ask them like information about their level of social affirmation. And then
and
independently you assess objective outcomes.
Done. So one
and
more
you
time.
you correlate the social affirmation with the objective outcomes, which is something I can do that you can't.
So let me help you out here. Here's what you just said. To everybody listening, here's what Naomi just said. Naomi just said, you can call them and ask them if the affirmations which directly posited in their life a type of feeling contributed to this outcome.
That's not what they do.
That's what you just said.
That is not what they do, and that's not what I said.
Then what's
what
an affirmation?
What they ask people is about the level of social affirmation that they experience in their gender identity.
So
things like are their parents supportive? Things like do they have friends and family that are supportive of their gender identity?
Feelings.
They ask them things like that, and then independently they use demographic data about things like economic attainment, educational attainment, and you correlate their level of social attainment with their objective outcomes. This is something that I can do that you can't. You don't have any studies
but I don't need to.
What
Christians
level of